Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild. I'm David Berkowitz and excited to host a friend and investor and professor and all kinds of things, Jeremy Kagan at Textbook Ventures, among his many claims to fame. Jeremy, welcome. I'm excited to hear from you and especially your portfolio today. This should be a really fun conversation, and we got some great people in the room for asking good questions and giving some feedback. So I'm looking forward to what everyone has to share.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. It's so great to see David actually join AI Marketers Guild up with the Marketecture team, where I've worked many years. So it's really nice to see old friends get together. And you, if you're listening to this on recording, you missed all the bad dad jokes, but don't worry, we're going to keep them in our dad-o base. So, okay, that's the last one. I really mean this time.
I've got a production team now at Marketecture to get rid of all this stuff. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about, I'll give you a little bit about my background, but I'm really excited to talk to you about the companies who are going to illustrate the points we're making today. So as David mentioned, I'm a professor and venture capitalist, and Textbook Ventures is the name of my firm, which, as you probably guessed, is a dad joke because I'm a professor. We tend to invest in folks from our network, from the amazing schools I teach at, Columbia, Cornell Tech, NYU, and folks that reach us through almost a couple decades now of being in various parts of the startup world. One of my things, of course, is I'm a digital marketing professor. And so I am very fortunate to hear about some terrifically innovative companies before everybody else, which means I get to invest first. And you're going to meet three of them today. And AI in marketing is actually, you won't be surprised to hear, one of the hottest areas. Marketing is actually adopting among the fastest of all the areas in corporations, according to McKinsey, if you believe those guys. And those same researchers have found that people using AI tools generally outperform those who don't. Since we're all overachievers on this call, it will upset you to hear that the low achievers actually improve more than the high achievers. We all improve, but the least productive people in your organization improve the most. So that's a little disappointing for those of us who've depended on our, us being outliers and awesome at our jobs. It makes everyone else a little bit better. But the good news is, if you have a lot of people working with you or for you, it's going to help the people who aren't as good get better. The other thing that I like to emphasize when we talk about AI is that I'm pretty much an optimist. I don't think AI is coming for your job. I think someone who uses AI better than you is probably coming for your job. So you better be messing around with it now. And so that's what we tell, all the kids who are graduating when they ask what the advice is. I tell them, mess around with AI, learn the tools. There are so many applications of AI as well. So that's sort of like my, don't jump off a cliff, calm down moment, because a lot of people are panicked about AI. Even the Today Show this morning, there was a guy who was saying all our jobs are going to be destroyed. And there are some existential questions with AI. I'll touch on a few of those just in a second. But I just wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork before letting these fabulous companies that are actually great applications of AI in different ways talk to you about what they're doing. We're most familiar with ChatGPT. How many people will sort of say ChatGPT synonymously with AI when they're thinking about it? And that's good because it's incredibly powerful. What we're really looking at, though, is just one application. That's generative for the most part. And generative AI is when we create content. We create content by basically a giant advanced form of autocorrect. And if you've ever been to the website Damn You Autocorrect, you know that it gets things wrong all the time. Mine actually seems to be getting dumber on my phone. I keep texting people things that have no bearing in reality. And if you've experienced this, you can understand what the very advanced form of that is, hallucinations, where these generative tools can sometimes come up with very wrong answers. And if you want to see a really kind of hysterical and sad one, just ask ChatGPT how many R's are in the word strawberry. You may get 3, you may get a vegetable. You don't know with them. They can't really answer that question well. And this seems to be an easy question to answer. But fundamentally, the way AI works is not a giant database that we were, as we were joking about. It's really about figuring out the relationships between previously difficult to structure data, like text, and then in a somewhat arcane way, predicting what the answer should look like. So if I had another professor talk to me about this just recently, and he made a great point. If we were going to take a poll of this group, if I asked you the question, give me a number between 1 and 5. Don't say anything else but that single number, the integer, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If we did it in this group, how many people think we'd get the same number would have a roughly 20% chance of being picked? This is not a trick question. This is the correct answer because we all know how to do basic math. It's not the case in sort of these ChatGPT situations. In these kind of large language models, the percentage chance of certain numbers is higher than others, which means that this isn't really mathematical based. It's predictive. Now, this is kind of, the math is above all of us probably because it's very difficult. And frankly, the researchers are still trying to figure out exactly what's happening. But the good news is we don't have to know all the math to understand what's going on in AI. I do quite well driving my car on the weekends, but I couldn't fix it if I had to. So the thing is, I can use that complex and useful piece of machinery to achieve goals that I have without knowing exactly how it works. It does help if I'm smart enough to know to change the oil and put gas in the car. So knowing a little bit about AI can help you do a lot better with not just using AI, but the applications and understanding what's truly groundbreaking and what's somebody just telling you what ChatGPT can do. So one other note is that really what's happening with AI is we're taking essentially all the words on the internet and putting them through over 1,000 different kinds of comparison sort of matrices and saying, these are how these words relate to each other in this way and in that way. And ultimately, when we put all that together, what we get is not just a great ability to predict what might be the next word, which ends up being, the things we can do by writing an email or blog posts, but AI actually comes up sort of inherently out of this with a sense of what context is. So the word model, for example, when I'm trying to, look for something in search for the word model, I may be looking for a financial model. You may be looking for a airplane model for a present for somebody, and somebody else might be looking for a swimsuit model. It can mean very different things. So if we apply the way these models can apply context, is the other words around it, we actually can see predictively, even though it doesn't know the context, it's inherently getting the context by the words around it and in the prompt that word means. That's why we get such amazing answers the more data we put into it. And that's a really, really crude overview of AI. Is anybody interested more in the mechanics, or can I skip ahead onto what actually AI can be used to do in marketing and let these companies speak for themselves as well?
Yeah, well, I think getting to the companies will be great, but any other tee up is terrific for this crew. So.
Well, one of the other things is, what can AI be used for? And we all know the generative AI that saves us from blank page syndrome when we're trying to write something or get started, or AI that can synthesize a document and summarize it for us. But there's lots of other ways AI can be used. AI can be used to find patterns where there aren't any for things like targeting or bidding. It can be used to organize, attest, and evaluate the results. And so I'm going to let the companies that actually use this in a much more sophisticated way speak to that. But I do want to raise sort of an existential question for you guys. One of the things that, being in agency land at one point in my life that I remembered is when you start out in your career in many of our best, high-end professions, you start by doing a lot of the grunt work. If you want to be an agent in Hollywood, you're in the mailroom in William Morris. If you want to, start working in an agency, start as maybe an analyst or a copywriter or something like that. Now, a lot of the work that AI is able to do for us is very sophisticated, as sophisticated as the most experienced people in the industry. But those experienced people did all that grunt work to get that experience. So if we get these tools eliminating that kind of repetitive motion of crafting an ad copy over and over again, or designing an ad in some way, are we going to eliminate that expertise in the future? I think that's something that's interesting to think about. And then I start saying to myself, I'm like the guy who complains about people using calculators to figure out a check at dinner. I mean, we have the tools. We should probably use them. And so with that, I've sort of high level how it works, a little bit about what it can do, and a little bit about some of my own fears about it. We are looking at, there's one question already saying, what's the difference between generative versus applied AI? And that's actually not an either or question. Generative is a type of AI. I think applied AI would be lots of different ways you can use AI. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you to sort of hold that question till after the much smarter people than me that I invested in so they can make me look good, talk about their applications, because that'll give you an idea of a spectrum of what's out there really working today. And these are pretty impressive guys. They're doing essentially what I consider the cutting edge and best uses of AI in different areas. So if that's okay, we'll punt to let them get started. And the first one, we're going to go in alphabetical order because I love all my my folks the same. But the first one will be BranchLab, and the founder Josh is here to talk about that. And BranchLab is obviously run by a bunch of experts in the field who are using AI in their area of expertise. So take it away, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeremy. And having a last name that starts with W, I'm not typically used to going first alphabetically. So this is a nice change for me. I also need to comment that with all the dad jokes on the upfront of this meeting, if I happen to fall asleep mid-presentation, that's because I was recently made a dad for the second time 8 days ago. So a little bit sleep deprived at the moment. Thank you, Adam. And but yeah, let me just let me jump right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think everyone should be able to see that. Can I get maybe a thumbs up from a couple folks? Cool. Okay. Yeah. So as Jeremy kind of set up here, their AI needs a lot of different things, and the application of AI is being used and will be used for a number of to solve for a great number of different problems. At BranchLab, we're solving a very specific problem, and I need to set that problem up with a couple maybe bold statements or predictions. You might think they're bold, you might not think that, but I'm just going to sort of speed run through a couple concepts to begin. Where's the internet going? Number one, most websites will die, and not just ugly ones like this one from 1994. That's a very specific website with a lot of history. I won't get into why. And most, what does most mean? I don't know. Is it 90%? Is it 70%? Not sure. When will they die? That's a question. Is it 3 years, 5, 10? Walled environments, social CTV, and AI agents, ChatGPT being one example of that, will likely take or replace all human website traffic. So instead of a person creating a website, putting it on the internet, and hoping people come to that website, by the way, an internet that I deeply love, being more a 1990s hacker than anything else. With niche, people creating sort of niche websites, and it was the internet was much more interesting back then, in my opinion. That's probably going to go away and be replaced by agents. So agents will create for me the content, imagery, maybe even videos at some point, etc., for the information that I'm looking for in this more malleable but also ephemeral way. We're beginning to see that in ChatGPT, for example. Perplexity is very good at this. Other agents, more text-based today, that'll become much more attractive looking in the future and likely replace human-based website traffic. For consumers, this experience, in my opinion, is going to be awesome. And I mean that word in all senses of it. I use these things extensively today, and I think it's just a far better experience. And I haven't been excited about the internet in this way since 1994. And for innovators, technicians, entrepreneurs, like folks that want to participate in this new internet, it's likely the largest opportunity that we've had since 1994. To back up this future that I'm stating, Google is kind of an easy case study where the great majority of Google's income comes from search advertising, and anyone can go into Google and put in a search these days, and the top section of that search results page is now dominated by an AI response that Google is not monetizing. So Google is eroding their own revenue stream, their largest revenue stream, by participating in this new AI format. They actually recently launched a full AI experience where you can actually switch over from Google search to the full AI experience. And this, of course, will have huge implications for not just search marketing, but for the downstream websites that participate with this. I thought it was funny that this morning I did a quick Google search as to why there is a decline in Google search results, and the AI actually, agrees with me here that, like, partly due to the rise of AI, Google's search is on the decline type of thing. So if we that was very quick, but if you're with me that, like, the future of the internet is going to look different and perhaps largely dominated by these walled environments, social, CTV, and AI agents, then what does this mean for advertising technology in that new world? It will be dominated by AI native ad tech technologies that can participate in this new environment. This is everything from strategic agents, creative agents, analytics, optimization, contextual, brand safety, media, and in the case of BranchLab, audience agents. And this is an issue that's particularly acute in healthcare marketing. In the simplest terms, God forbid I get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, or MS is kind of a dark one. Let's go with plaque psoriasis. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what that term means. When my doctor first tells me, I go home, I do a Google search, I ask an agent. Maybe I go to a forum, but then that's a chronic condition, which means I live with that condition for the rest of my life. I'm probably not spending a lot of time interacting with content or agents or social posts or whatever about my condition. And because of that, healthcare marketing is dominated by audience targeting. So BranchLab is solving for a very specific problem, which is audience targeting for healthcare marketing using AI native solutions. So really what that means for us, I'm going to show you the front end of the software, but the back end here from a higher level, what this really means is data portability. Like, all data sources need to be agnostic. Perplexity is a great is a great LLM. We talked about ChatGPT earlier. I tend to think Perplexity, everyone's going to have their favorite agent in the future. It's almost going to be like cell phone services, I think, but mine happens to be Perplexity at the moment. I would encourage folks to give that one a shot. And Perplexity, has announced that they will introduce advertising into that ecosystem. I don't think it's a stretch to believe that Google's Gemini, which is cannibalizing their search business, would do the same. How is advertising going to be injected into those environments? Who knows? So it's important to build these new systems for this new future with being data agnostic and being able to work in those environments. So for us at BranchLab, that's one half of what AI native means, using AI to make sure that the data is portable and accessible in all these different environments, some of them TBD, social environments, CTV, and then agents, TBD. How the software functions, it looks and feels a lot like ChatGPT or Perplexity, if you've ever used it, where we are asking our users for an outcome that they want. So in this case, we're looking for, we want to increase prescription fills of a given prescription drug. What the user's not telling the system is, I want to put advertising in front of people with a given diagnosis. Instead, what this sentence really means is, I want to find people who you predict will benefit from my drug if we can message to them. Jeremy talked about taking large sets of data and making predictions using AI. So you can imagine on the back end here, that's the exact build on the back end of this, looking at healthcare journeys over the past 10 years. You load a very large amount of data, and you can watch a user's health journey and make a prediction about what happens next. If the prediction is a diagnosis of a given condition, let's message to them about treatment that can improve their quality of life. So that's sort of the concept here. This is a very different way of doing it than the way that this is executed today. Predicting an outcome versus targeting ads to a population with a given diagnosis. And just looking at sort of the front end experience here, it looks and feels a lot like an AI agent does. And I think more and more this will be the experience of software because it's better, it's more mean, dare I say it's more human. So it's a conversation back and forth to make sure that the system understands like what we actually want to attempt to do. In this case, we want to put together different audiences for D2C consumers and also their healthcare professionals. A system recognizing that if we can, different messages, but message to both of those individuals, that when they come together and have a conversation, it's a more informed conversation. Is the concept. The system then. So if we think about how a prediction happens, it's looking at a health journey and recognizing that with some degree of probability, the next step in their healthcare journey will be X, let's say a diagnosis or a hospital visit or a conversation with a physician, what have you. We do not want to, step on any consumer's privacy, let's say. Health data is probably your most private data. And historically, how we would target these populations is we would look directly at medical claims of individuals and try to find those individuals on websites. This system constructs audiences in quite a different way. It looks at patient populations at that critical moment in their healthcare journey and looks at other non-sensitive information about those individuals to recommend segments of non-sensitive data that the user is then constructing into a single cohesive audience that can be ported to walled environments, social CTV and AI agents in the future. And the system is kind of intelligently recommending these items, understanding, and there's a few different BranchLab items here like ATI and just other metrics that we created. I won't get into those. But basically, the system's intelligent enough to sort of pull this together and offer it up to the end user. In these walled environments, measurement is quite challenging. It's typically done deterministically. Cookies, MIDs, mobile IDs, hashed emails, these types of things. In order to be data agnostic for that future, that likely won't be an option. I can't imagine OpenAI saying, sure, here's all my individuals' data. And the same way that Meta does not allow that today. So a more probabilistic approach using a similar probability methodology in the audience creation, you can deploy a similar model for measurement as well. So we can look at large populations. We can look at things like prescription fills. And we can correlate the two and build a probability model of measurement to better understand how these, the efficacy of the audiences that we're launching and the places on which we're launching them. So BranchLab audiences today are live across anything from addressable television to, Meta, Facebook, et cetera. And so this is a big part of it. It's not just constructing those audiences measurements, a necessary component as well. That is the end of my presentation. I feel like that's like the fastest I've ever gone through any of that content. Hopefully I was mostly coherent through the process. But yeah, pause for questions or.
Well, there are a number of questions coming in terms of like where the data is coming from, privacy, things like that. So.
Yep. Yeah. So privacy is a big part of it. So through a user's health journey is anonymized aggregate level. It is medical data. Funny enough, we just moved into a new office, which was previously occupied by Google's health business called Veilen. So it's like there's something in these four walls about health data, but there's a number of ways where you can get access to aggregate level anonymized health data. It's used, predominantly for new drug creation, academic purposes, these types of things. Heavily scrutinized for HIPAA and different states of regulation, My Health, My Data, et cetera. You can't see any individual record, but you can see on the aggregate and pull from that patterns of data, which allow the AI to make its predictions. But to be more specific, like where is the data generated? It's generated at the hospital. It's generated at the pharmacy. It's generated through insurance companies. It's brought into larger entities, anonymized, and then companies like BranchLab get access to that at the aggregate statistical level.
Right. Yeah, Karen.
So my question is, if it's anonymized, how do you target if you don't know who the person is?
Yep. Excuse me. So in a given health record, anonymized means, there's no name, there's no address, there's no any information like that, but there is information about that user. So age, gender, geo is zip 3, not very deep. And then further down the line, you can see the facility that they were at, you could see the pharmacy they were at, you could see the prescribing physician, so on and so forth. So on the aggregate, you can begin to construct a model of people that look like this in these areas, in these climates. We can sort of augment additional data. We call it social determinants of health, things like income levels, so on and so forth. Again, on the human, on a human analytics level, that's a very challenging problem. It's a great application of AI to weed through that and build predictive models that then we can point at different populations and say, hey, within this population, what's the probability of this outcome occurring over the next 3 months, let's say.
This is absolutely amazing. I'm in healthcare and I'm a data scientist, so love everything you said. Makes perfect sense. It's amazing. I'll follow up with you. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. I look forward to that.
And one question from Victoria: how would RxLift be advertised versus someone searching for something health related on another more commonly used AI platform like a ChatGPT or something like that?
Yeah, it's an open question. ChatGPT has not said that they will allow advertising. Perplexity has said they will. Again, I believe Gemini, which is Google's, will. I believe Grok will. I think ChatGPT will as well. But I have no basis for that thought. It's TBD. We do not know the format of that advertising. Like, is it going to be recommended links? We just don't know at this point. So the best we can do in the marketing field is just make sure that our systems are agnostic, and anything that we port in or out of those systems will be interoperable. And what I mean by that is the output of a system like this, if it's a list of cookies, say, hey, go target these cookies, that would fail. It needs to be a probability model that's portable so that those systems can use it and preserve those users' privacy in the same way that we preserve the privacy on the health data front. We do this today with Meta. We do it today with TikTok. We do it with X, etc. We believe those AI agents will operate in the same way. It's TBD at this moment.
And David, before we let SWYM take over, I wanted to ask Josh if you could just brag a little bit about some of your traction or some of the legal issues that you've managed to come out on the right side of.
Sure. Traction-wise, my co-founder and chief revenue officer slaps my hand every time I mention advertisers by name. So instead, I'll say we do work with at least half of the top 10 pharmaceutical manufacturers in the world, which is nice. From a legal hurdle perspective, I believe is what you're referencing, Jeremy. There was a great paper that came out of Harvard Law, and the paper was referencing new state regulations and how they apply to healthcare data being used in advertising. And the paper is pretty damning for the legacy means of doing that over the past 10 years. And the paper goes so far as to actually reference BranchLab as the only privacy forward methodology that would not be prohibited by these state laws. So that was a nice, that was a nice, I don't know, feather in our cap, if that's even the right term. I don't know. I'll have to ask ChatGPT when we hang up. But it was a nice paper for sure.
Well, I think that's basically saying that the only legal way to do this is you guys, which, I'm very excited about it. With that, I put the information of BranchLab into the chat if anybody needs contact info there. And let us now move over to Andy from SWYM.
Yeah, and we can also make sure to circulate any of the links and contact info you want to share, Jeremy. Just we can aggregate that and not so anonymously share it with the attendees. So
fantastic.
Now full screen. Yeah, it's good.
That's good. All right. Thank you, guys. This is fun. Starting with dad jokes, getting into deep issues of privacy. Now I'm going to move us to a different world, and I'm going to talk about lemons and cherries. So hopefully that will be interesting and exciting. But more specifically, SWYM is, as the name implies, it is an acronym. It does stand for Stop Wasting Your Money. This is a solution that lives in the media space, specifically for the short run in the programmatic media space, and hopefully people there might understand the reason why you need to stop wasting your money. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about how we are applying AI to a problem, and hopefully this presentation definitely makes sense to those who are in this space. Anybody who wants to learn more. But just before I get in, because Jeremy alluded, so I'll start with it in terms of traction and the company and stuff. So I'm one of the co-founders here. We started SWYM about 18 months ago, so maybe 20 months ago. But it is a fast-growing, rapidly gaining adoption. We work today with over 35 agencies who are our clients, as well as about 50 advertisers. We are here to assist, as it says, advertisers and agencies or anybody spending money in the ecosystem, in the programmatic ecosystem, to do it much more efficiently. So with that, let me jump in and tell you what we're up to. So first, I just like to set the stage, because not everybody knows that the programmatic and the digital ecosystem overall is a very, very big marketplace, right? So we're talking over $700 billion a year spent in digital, and there's a tremendous amount of waste, right? The debate is how much, but it's 25 to 35% is pretty common, okay, in terms of that. So what do I mean by that? Well, we like to call, or many people call, programmatic a lemon market. Right. And what is a lemon market? The traditional sense is a marketplace that has kind of significant information asymmetry, where the buyers and sellers know far different things about the goods. And as a result, you can sell a lot of low quality goods, AKA lemons in the market. And today, advertisers buy a lot of lemons. Okay. Hence back to the 25 to 35% equates to billions and billions of dollars a year that they effectively invest in advertising that really has no performing characteristics. And these are a lot of reasons, and those in the space know them. They can be mistargeted ads. They could be fraudulent, non-human. There's a lot of things that are just non-brand suitable. There's clearly an issue of non-viewable ads, right? You pay for ads that nobody can see, pretty common, unfortunately. Just poor quality ads, lots of middlemen that eat away at working media, that just take away from actually buying other ads. And then the biggest one, which isn't really talked about, is just perfectly great placements that just don't work, just don't deliver anything over and over again, right? So nothing really wrong with it, just not the right opportunity for you. And so here you see the beginnings of the problem, right? We're wasting a tremendous amount of money in this lemon market. Without going deep into it, what is not well discussed in the space is that the supply side happens to be where the issue really lies, which is not very common. Okay, most people think that I need to worry about the buy side. I am an advertiser and I need to optimize and optimize and optimize. And I got to flip all these switches, and I got to play all these games, and I've got to do all this work on the buy side to fix and eke out more value. And yes, that's true. But really, we realized at SWYM that the reason we have so many lemons is the supply side is blind to performance. And what do I mean by that is the way that we execute in programmatic is through technology. And on the buy side, for those in the space know, there are DSPs, demand side platforms, big ones like Google, DV360, and the Trade Desk. And on the sell side, there are platforms, sell-side platforms that are big companies like Magnite and Programmatic, and a lot of other ones. And so we work through these intermediaries, these technologies, but we're 15 years into the programmatic ecosystem, and there's no feedback loop, meaning the sell side has no idea what the buy side is trying to do, right? So they're selling them things, meaning they're pushing bid requests. So there are billions and billions of bid requests daily that get moved from the supply side to the buy side. And just again, to clarify for people, you've got publishers and, you've got your CNNs of the world and ESPNs of the world, and thousands of websites that are all effectively pushing their ad supply to these sell side platforms to aggregate to sell. And as I said, these platforms don't know what works. Surprisingly, they actually don't know what your objective is, and they don't know what performs. As a result, The buyers on the buy side of this equation can only bid on the supply that's presented to them. So we as an industry have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of thinking to optimize the buy side. But again, it can only work with what it's got, right? What's been sent to it. And so this is a fundamental flaw in the ecosystem that we attack at SWYM. We actually bring this problem to life. And I mentioned we were going to talk about lemons and cherries through something we call the programmatic supply paradox. And so we use this grocery store example to kind of explain what the real problem is. So imagine you go into a grocery store with money in your pocket, and you're told when you go in that store, you must spend every penny. You are not allowed to leave with money. And that is fundamentally how platforms work in digital marketing, which specifically demand-side platforms. If you put a budget in, it will disappear by midnight. It doesn't matter how big it is. It doesn't matter how small it is. Surprisingly, there's always enough supply to spend your money. There are no give backs. There's no money returned. It will all be gone, regardless of the quality. And so you're in this store and you're looking for cherries. You're going up and down the aisles looking for cherries. You find a few, but really all you find are a lot of lemons. The rule is you got to spend your money. So guess what? You buy a lot of lemons. You buy a crap load of lemons. Now, this is what's the broken part. This signals the store to tell its supplier to send them more lemons. Clearly, my customers love lemons, so they want more lemons. So guess what you get tomorrow? More lemons. And so we've been in this cycle for years where we're wasting billions and billions of dollars because there is no way to actually make sure the right supply actually gets to the demand side. Shocking, but actually the way our system works. So what we've done is we've created an AI-driven algorithmic approach we call, and curation is a big buzzword in the media space these days. But what we're doing is somewhat unique in how we're doing it. So we take the base concept of what curation in media, what is typically called a PMP, a private marketplace deal. They've been around for a decade. And really what they are is a way to tell the sell side, I would like a bunch of, of this type of media or this type of inventory. So I would like, I'm selling cars. Can you get me a lot of auto sites? Or back to what BranchLab was talking about, I would like an audience curated. I want people who are looking to buy a car. Okay. That's very basic. It happens all the time today, but it's a static approach. It's not a learning approach. It's not an AI driven approach. What we've done is added in AI and machine learning models, a tremendous amount of automation to remove the human element, and to be able to do this at scale. And really, and very importantly, focus on KPIs and outcomes. Okay. Which means fundamentally what is most important in media to us is, does it work? Does it deliver on the outcome of the objective? And so we've built a system, our AI-driven curation and learning engine, that is built into both sides of the fence. So it's built into the buy side and the sell side. So we kind of bridge this gap. And what we've done here is we've got API integrations to all the largest players on the sell side. So Google's AdX, Index Marketplace, Magnite, OpenX, PubMatic, Xandr, Equity. Effectively, we have access to 99.9% of the entire open web and can effectively get anything we want from a supply perspective. And then we are agnostic on the buy side. So it doesn't matter what the advertiser agency uses as their bidding platform, whether that's Google's platform or the Trade Desk or Yahoo, it doesn't matter. But the unique thing here that we're doing is we've now created a learning feedback loop. And what we've done is we said we learn off of actual in-market performance. And this is where the AI comes in. So at least our first iteration of this. And so we're ingesting data from the buy side, which again is somewhat unique in this approach. And that data comes into our system every day. And it tells us, what did you purchase? What ads did you buy yesterday? Which ones performed and which ones didn't, based on the goal that you have. So for instance, you might actually invest and buy a million ads, okay, 1 million impressions, and maybe 10,000 delivered on your goal. And maybe your goal was conversions, maybe your goal was ROAS, return on ad spend, maybe your goal was click-through rate, it could be whatever it is. And our models will look at those 10,000 that actually performed and start learning about them. What type of ad is it? What is the website? What is the ad size? What is the geo? What is the time of day? What is the device type? All those things. And the next day you have another 10,000. Next day you have another 10,000. And so now you're learning what is actually performant. And as importantly, you're learning what is not performant. meaning all those ads that were pushed to you to buy, they're all made available in that grocery store, but none of them were going to work for you. And so we do this, and that's what our smart curation does, our algorithmic supply curation. There's also then the second half of the trip, which is now to use intelligence to bid smarter, right? To know when to bid higher, when to bid lower, based on all the signals you now have from both the buy side and the sell side. And so this kind of combination of what we call smart curate and smart bid really generate tremendous value to advertisers, hence why we've grown so fast. And so what we're doing here is the real most important thing here is the learning loop that we built is off of actual end market performance. Most of which, again, doesn't seem shocking, but isn't actually the primary way our business works. Most optimizations are all built on these other issues, other criteria, audiences, context, whether or not it's fraudulent, whether or not it's brand safe, which are all very important. But in our view, the most important thing is learning of what actually works and delivering more of that. So fundamentally, back to the lemons and cherries, what we're doing here is we're changing what's in that bid stream, that pipe that goes from the sell side to the buy side, from what today is a lot of lemons and a few cherries to as many cherries as possible. And again, we learn what a cherry is through all the machine learning and AI that happens on the buy side, pulling that data, doing all the regression analysis and all the different types of data science that our team is doing to figure out what is performant, what is not, and then going and getting more of that through all the connections we have in the supply and pushing that into the bid stream. And so we like to say too that what's really interesting about this is that what is, a cherry today may not be a cherry next week. And also we like to say what is one campaign's lemon is another campaign's cherry. And so it's really finding what is most performant for that. And at the end of the day, it's changing the math equation in the favor of the buyer, giving them much better opportunities to actually deliver and get value. So I'm going to show you a few cases and such, and then I'll take all the questions and all the fun stuff there. But just to give you a sense of how this performs, this is one example of a financial services client. Cost per acquisition was their objective. That's what they want to lower the cost per acquisition. So first you see that we just simplified the supply chain for them, which is one of the fringe benefits of this, which is they were previously using 24 suppliers. Who needs 24 suppliers? Some campaigns use 80 suppliers. We use 2. They were buying 17,000 domains, running around the internet on 17,000 websites that none of us could name. We found 1,000 that were highly, highly performant. And we're able to get way more of the supply out of those 1,000 because we're telling the suppliers to send it to us. Media costs, there's no markup in our model, but we're often able to drive much lower prices for the same media. But the real thing is the models are fine-tuned for that last KPI. And here was find the bid requests and push them to be purchased to lower CPA. And here we lowered it 36%. Okay. This next one is in CTV, connected TV channel, which obviously is growing very fast. Again, highly simplified the supply chain, 91% fewer suppliers, 84% fewer domains, but most importantly, that 23% lowering of the cost per completed view. That's what they wanted. That's what these models do by shaping supply so that you're bidding only on things that have a chance of performing and removing all the ones that don't. Last case, just to show this, is ROAS. This is a company selling on Amazon through the Amazon DSP. And you can see how blue, which is SWYM, and red is the non-SWYM part of the campaign, was consistently outperforming. Because again, we're shaping supply. We're telling the sell side, don't send us that stuff that doesn't work. Send us the stuff that does work. Shocking how that works. And so again, this is all AI driven because it's done at scale where a human could do this once or twice, and then they'd shoot themselves if they tried to do it over and over again. So it's a lot of consistent learning and stuff. And there are agentic workflows coming to even simplify even further. But right now, this is kind of the base offering. The last slide, and then I'll be thrilled to take questions. So we like to tell people it's easy to activate, it's easy to measure, it's tech agnostic, it's channel rich, and the part that people love is we don't charge anything. So just drop that bomb at the end. We don't charge anything for this because we get paid by the sell side and we're solving problems for the buy side. So we're able to go into advertisers and agencies and say, I can get you better media. I can get a better performance. I can clean up your supply chain. You could be up and running in an hour. And guess what? It doesn't cost you anything. So hence why Jeremy said, hey, we'll invest in you guys. So that's what's going on. Happy.
So I want to save any for the end. I just want to make sure we get to our third presenter. Feel free to also respond in the chat and either en masse or DM folks. And again, we'll make sure to share contact info. I just want to make sure we get the third one. And if we get a few over, I'm okay with that. But yeah. Well,
let's definitely feel free to fire off the questions in the chat, and Andy will be answering, and I'll stick around as well as Andy if you can. I want to make sure Veylan gets a chance to tell you about what they're doing. They just announced just a short time ago, and it's a really exciting application across the spectrum of a lot of what agencies do. Daniel and his co-founder are what I like to think of as ad tech royalty, although they hate when I say that. But these guys have been in the business for a while, have incredible success, and they know what the problems are directly and firsthand. So they built a solution that works for them and anybody like them. So I think a lot of the folks here have clients and in-house teams that they've worked with. This might be one that really catches your eye as well. And I've put a description of them into the window as well, but I'll let Daniel take it away from here.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Can everybody see the slides? Everyone good? Yeah? Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. Daniel Meehan, co-founder of Veilen. We are a AI native operating system for advertising. And as Jeremy alluded to, I come out of the ad tech and digital advertising ecosystem. A lot of what Veilen has been built to do and solve are the pain points for businesses like mine. Those businesses could be advertising technology companies that sort of sit in the middle of between advertising demand and supply, work with media agencies, order their brands. They could be media agencies themselves who are actually working with brand marketers to solve strategy, creative, and media challenges. And eventually they will absolutely be the brands themselves, those clients who are using Veilen, hopefully, to change their entire workflow. And so, what is Veilen? So, Veilen is the first platform that is built with AI at its core. It's in its DNA. The actual technology that we're using and kicks off everything downstream for Veilen is about 10 years old and has been worked on in the lab, starting from hedge funds, moving to some 3-letter agencies for the Department of Defense, and most recently in the cybersecurity industry. And so the first thing to think about Veilen is that this technology has been incubated for more than a decade, and it's mostly focused on math. So it's math based. Everything starts with autonomous agents and discovery of data that gets plugged into our clients' infrastructure. And so that could be, your AWS or your Google Cloud infrastructure. It could be your databases. It could be your email client systems. It could be your notes in Confluence. It could be your creative ad server. It could be all of those things. And what Veilen effectively does, it patches together all of the old legacy systems. And so when you think about how digital advertising gets from idea to storyboard, to media strategy, to audience targeting, to creative being built, to be actually distributed and activated, like through Andrew's company with Swift, and then reported on. Typically, these are all legacy systems that are doing work in silos. And what Veilen has come into the market to do is condense and collapse all of those systems so that you have an AI native platform that's actually listening, learning about your brand, and allows you to actually go from idea to execution in a much quicker fashion. And so the problem is AI isn't a tool. It's a shift in power. And so when you look at what the market is today, I think Andrew had mentioned that there's almost $800 billion spent globally just in programmatic. The market is tremendously large. Much of it is spent in media, but a lot of it is also consumed in non-media costs. These are costs that are taken up by production, management, overhead, and you're talking about $1 getting from a brand through their agency, through ad tech partners, through pipelines, through platforms, through systems, more than half of that dollar gets eaten up through that actual ecosystem. And so the immense inefficiency of this, it really limits the potential of, whether it's a brand or a marketer or somebody working on their behalf, media agency or an ad tech company, to actually do really good work. And so when we look at the opportunity, the industry is still stuck in retrofitting, yesterday's workflows, as I mentioned previously. We're trying to bolt AI onto broken systems, and the true transformation of AI really requires a shift in how businesses operate. And that's what I wanted to kind of talk to you about for a couple of minutes here. I also happen to be the founder and CEO of an ad tech company called Pad Squad. And Pad Squad is a creative ad tech company that works with major brand marketers and their agencies to take content that's been pre-approved and assemble that content into really unique digital ad experiences. And so we've been using Veylen now for about 4 or 5 months. It's connected to all of our different infrastructure, and it now allows our company to have conversations with our data and understand our history. And so when you think about a company like Pad Squad, who's been around for more than a decade, imagine a system that has read every report you've ever done, every client presentation that's ever been presented, every ad impression that's ever been served, every piece of creative that's ever been built, every animation within a creative, every video that's ever run within a creative, every call to action, every color, every message. That's literally what Veylen gives us access to. And so now my team can quickly log in and have a conversation with our past and understand micro insights that no human could potentially ever understand how to ask, let alone know it even connects. And so when we think about just the efficiencies that Veylen has brought to market, you can see some of this in the slide. Previously, when we're trying to generate a proposal for a new client campaign, that would come from a sales team. It would be written up in a different CRM system. It would pass along to an account manager who would loop in a marketing person, who would pull in a creative strategist, who would set a meeting where we'd have 5 or 6 resources talk about it. We'd go and try to fumble around in the dark in our legacy systems and try to find past work we've done for them, past creative. We do some searches to find out what the company is doing in market. And now that entire process can be done through a very quick interface with Veylen. And so we've shrunk the time to go from an opportunity to an actual on-brand proposal from a number of days, whether that's 5 days or more than a week, depending on timing, to a matter of minutes. And the amount of insight that comes out of the system is pretty mind-bending. It's just the kind of information, the kind of data that no human could potentially understand. And so now if you wanted to do a storyboard, that goes from, days down to minutes. If you wanted to look at a live campaign analysis, instead of going and trying to pull data out of the system or look at an antiquated dashboard, again, it's a quick conversation with the system, and that is reported down to seconds. And so basically what Veylen has done is it's created a system that connects to your data. It has a conversational workflow that allows you to, talk to your past, get all these insights, and then produce artifacts, proposals, articles, reports, storyboards, anything like that comes out of the conversational interface. And then on top of that, it layers on a workflow. And so we can go from planning, whether you wanted to create a new campaign, or if you're an agency, you wanted to drop in an RFP document from a brand, or if you're an ad tech company, you wanted to drop in an RFP document from a media agency that you're working on. The system automatically extracts that through a number of different agents. It then automatically checks into all of your history and looks at past performing campaigns in that category using these CTAs, using this color scheme, and pulls together audience targeting, pulls together a planning, a creative brief, and it can actually start to build generative creative actual formats for you. And so that entire process can take 5 to 10 minutes. once approved and orchestrated through the humans, using the system, you can move that to an execution stage where that payload, that strategy, that audience targeting, that creative brief automatically flows to a generative creative ad builder. So whether you're building, dynamic advertising through rich media banners, static banners, social, video, all of that payload flows into that. And now the system is generating ad formats for you on the fly, again, orchestrating, from a human. Once that is approved, it automatically goes to a distribution workflow where ad tags can be created from the pre-approved creative. All third-party tagging and tracking can be dropped in, and then it can be pushed into a system very similar to what Andy was talking about with Swift. We're connected from an endpoint distribution into a buy-side platform like Yahoo on the DSP side, or a supply-side platform like Xandr on the SSP side. And so now with the click of a button, you've gone through that entire process of ideation, conversation, orchestration with the idea, spitting that out into audience, creative, tagging, and now that's automatically in the system and ready to be generated. And not dissimilar to what Swift does, now we have an API coming back from those systems, again, whether it's on the buy side or the supply side. And that information is now flowing in to our intelligence model, and it's automatically generating insights. So whether it's, for KitchenAid, understanding that the morning drive time between 8 and 11 tends to react better to a learn more CTA, but on the weekend, shop now CTA is more impactful. The system will start to predict changes in your targeting strategy and your creative strategy that can then go back into that same exact system and make changes on the fly and then be pushed to those endpoints. And so for lack of time, I don't want to go through the entire presentation on the transformation that Pad Squad has gone through. But being that we're about 5 or 6 months into that system, part of what I think everyone should think about when adopting AI and looking at the latest tools that exist is the human piece. As a CEO of a company, AI is very enticing because I look at a way to potentially decouple top line growth from labor costs and get much more efficient and break down these silos from our teams, and rethink really how, we deploy our resources. But the reality is the challenge becomes a human one, because you're going from teams that are working with old systems and know how to do a certain amount of things to now using a system like Veylen and other systems that are coming onto the market. This technology gives them intelligence at their fingertips. And now they're being forced to change the way that they think and really broaden the scope of what they can do for an organization. I think Jeremy kind of mentioned it early on, is that, AI is not coming for my employees' roles. Using AI and being able to be AI native for humans within organizations in marketing is going to be the challenge, I think, that we all kind of deal with in the future. And so Pad Squad's going through that right now, using this advanced technology with Veylen. And I happen to be in a place where I'm sort of seeing how Veylen develops as a co-founder and also applying it to a business in the digital advertising ecosystem with Pad Squad, and understanding how much of a human transformation story this really is outside of just the actual technology, which is moving at light speeds. So with that, I will pause since we're over time. I try to get through it as quickly as possible.
I will be able to host a little bit longer, so anybody who does have time, we'll stick around for as many questions as possible, but as long as David can give us. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so, and I want to thank everyone who came, and Jeremy, of course, but also Andrew, Daniel, Josh. I mean, these are just like really exciting, very different applications of how to use AI for marketing. It's exactly what we're all here for in this group, and you're welcome to stick around and keep sharing your expertise in the community as well. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We've got a lot of great speakers coming up for the next month or so. So, but this is terrific, and yeah, we'll keep things open for those who want to continue the conversation and share contact info out.